I reluctantly agreed to an open marriage with my wife. When I fell in love with a coworker, my ex lost control and tried to ruin everything. What happens when the person you love shatters your heart, yet you somehow find the strength to rebuild your life from the ashes? This is the story of love, betrayal, and, ultimately, redemption. A journey of a man who discovered that freedom sometimes comes from letting go, no matter how impossible it might seem. The story starts 10 years ago. I was 47, married to Lisa, who was 42. Our marriage had spanned 17 years. And we had 2 beautiful children, a toddler and a baby. On the surface, we had everything: a family, a house, and dreams of a future together. But behind closed doors, the reality was very different. It all started to crumble when I found out Lisa was cheating on me. The discovery was devastating. I stumbled across messages that Lisa hadn't deleted. Her words, written with such familiarity and warmth to someone else, struck me like a knife. My whole world shattered in that instant. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. Instead, she admitted that she had fallen out of love with me and wanted to live freely, unbound by the commitment of our marriage. I remember her exact words: "I need an open marriage." Those words sent shockwaves through my mind. We had 2 young children, one still a baby. Divorce at that point seemed impossible. I had a meager income, and starting a legal battle to split custody would only make our lives more complicated. I decided to take a different approach, the only one that seemed bearable at the time. I reluctantly agreed to the open marriage she wanted. We moved into separate spaces within our home. Our duplex had an upstairs guest room that I relocated to, while Lisa stayed downstairs in the master bedroom. From then on, we lived like roommates rather than husband and wife. We became co-parents for our children, splitting responsibilities while leading our own separate lives. Lisa brought other men into the house, and I moved upstairs to avoid seeing any of it. In those first few years, I harbored an intense anger. I couldn't believe this was happening. I had imagined a completely different life for our family. I used to look at her with so much love, and now, every time I saw her, all I could feel was resentment. Resentment that we had somehow ended up here. That she had chosen infidelity over trying to fix what we had. During that time, I focused on coping with the emotional aftermath. Dating didn't feel right, not with everything that had happened. So I immersed myself in other aspects of life. I joined a local badminton club and rekindled my love for sports, something I hadn't done since college. It helped me release some of the anger I had built up inside. I also joined a hiking club, one that organized solo hikes where strangers could explore the wilderness alone but together. It was cathartic. Each step up the trail felt like a small victory, like I was slowly climbing my way out of the emotional depths that had consumed me. Then, a few months ago, I met Kathy. She was 35, my junior at work, and we hit it off from the start. Our connection wasn't romantic at first. It was just 2 people talking. 2 people who understood each other's challenges at work. And slowly we became friends. Kathy was easy to talk to, she wasn't judgmental. She listened, and for the first time in years, I felt like someone actually saw me for who I was. One evening, after a particularly long day, we decided to grab dinner together. And during that dinner, something shifted. We made eye contact, and it lingered. It wasn't just about friendship anymore. We ended up sharing a kiss that night. And I remember feeling a spark that I hadn't felt in years. Kathy brought a sense of warmth and lightness back into my life that I didn't know I had been missing. She soon began staying over at my apartment upstairs more frequently. And it felt natural, comforting, like coming home. Of course, this didn't sit well with Lisa. Although she had been seeing other men for years, she suddenly took an interest in what I was doing. It began subtly, little things, like her wanting to join Kathy and me at dinner one evening. Uninvited, she sat down without even asking if she could join, and the entire meal was painfully awkward, filled with forced conversation from Lisa. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe she just wanted to fit in or reconnect in some way. But then it escalated. One night, Kathy and I were upstairs watching a movie when Lisa barged in and demanded that I help her with one of the kids' science projects. It caught me off guard. We had always divided school responsibilities. I helped our older child, and she took care of our younger one. Her sudden insistence that I drop everything and help was clearly about something else entirely. It led to a massive argument, and Kathy, feeling uncomfortable, left. After that incident, Kathy told me she didn't want to hang out at my place anymore. And I couldn't blame her. Lisa was trying to stake her claim, to remind me that, legally, she was still my wife. It was confusing and frustrating. She had chosen this path. And now that I had found someone who made me happy, she wanted to pull me back. It wasn't fair. I confronted her about her behavior. And she brushed it off, claiming I was overreacting, that she was just trying to keep the family together. But her actions told a different story. I started to think seriously about divorce. The idea of staying in this limbo, neither together nor fully apart, was suffocating. I wanted to move on with Kathy. To build a real future. The only reason I hadn't pursued divorce earlier was because of the kids. I didn't want them to feel torn between their parents. But now I was realizing that staying in this toxic situation might be doing more harm than good. They were getting older, 11 and 13 now, and they deserved a stable, loving environment, not one filled with underlying tension. I sought therapy, and it was one of the best decisions I ever made. My therapist helped me see that I had been putting everyone else first for so long that I had forgotten about myself. I deserved happiness too, and it wasn't selfish to want that. I had an open conversation with Kathy about my feelings, about wanting to be with her, to start fresh. She admitted she felt the same but was hesitant because of the complicated family dynamics. I promised her that I would make things right. I told Lisa that I wanted a divorce. She was shocked, even though I had warned her multiple times that if she continued to interfere in my life, I would take that step. She cried and tried to manipulate me into staying, bringing up our children and saying I was breaking up the family. But I was done being controlled. I had spent 10 years sacrificing my own happiness for the sake of a marriage that was long over. It was time to move on. Lisa didn't make it easy. She tried every tactic, guilt-tripping, emotional outbursts, even pleading with our children to convince them to stay with her. It was heartbreaking to watch her use the kids like that. But I stayed firm. I explained everything to the children in an age-appropriate way. With the help of my therapist, they understood. And although it was hard, they supported my decision. They wanted me to be happy too. The divorce process was long and draining. Lisa tore up the first set of papers, and my lawyer had to send her a formal letter threatening legal action before she finally signed them. Even after all that, she tried to manipulate Kathy, showing up at her place while I was away on vacation with the kids, telling her that I wasn't serious about our relationship, that she was just a fling. But Kathy didn't fall for it. She waited until I returned and calmly told me everything. I admired her strength. She wasn't easily shaken, even in the face of Lisa's spiteful behavior. Finally, the divorce was finalized. I moved out of the duplex. And to my surprise, both of my children chose to come with me. It wasn't an easy transition. Lisa tried one last time to convince them to stay, apologizing for everything she had done, crying, and begging. My younger child wavered, and I told him it was okay if he wanted to stay with his mom. I would love him no matter what. But in the end, both kids packed their bags and moved in with Kathy and me. Now, we're building a new life together. Kathy and I have made it our mission to make the kids feel at home in our new place. We're letting them decorate their rooms however they want, involving them in every step of the process. It's been a whirlwind of change, but it finally feels like we're moving forward. Lisa and I had one final conversation before I left the old house for good. She asked me to have a coffee with her, and I agreed. For once, her tone wasn't manipulative. She seemed genuinely remorseful. She admitted that she had taken me for granted, that she never imagined I would actually leave. She said that she thought Kathy was just another fling, and by the time she realized she had been wrong, it was too late. I listened, but I didn't feel much of anything. No anger. No sadness, just numbness. It was like the part of me that had once loved her had finally closed off for good. Life has changed drastically in the last few months, and I know there's still a lot to process. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the best outcomes. Walking away from what's familiar, even if it's broken, can be the only way to create a better life, not just for yourself, but for the people you love. I've learned that you can't keep sacrificing your happiness for others, especially if it means staying in a situation that brings nothing but pain. I chose to let go, and in doing so, I found something far better: freedom, love, and the chance to rebuild. If you're in a place where you feel trapped, Remember that it's never too late to choose yourself. The road might be hard, and the decisions painful, but in the end, you deserve to be happy. And sometimes, happiness only comes when you find the strength to let go. My wife's affair was exposed by her own parents. Now they want to disown her and leave me their $2 million inheritance. Should I accept it? It was the kind of betrayal that you only read about in books or see dramatized on TV. But for James, it was real life. Married for just over a year, James believed he had found his soulmate in Nicole. Their relationship began like any other fairy tale, two people meeting through a dating service and finding an unexpected spark. It seemed as if destiny had smiled on them, bringing them together at just the right time. And it wasn't long before they were living together and engaged. Nicole was everything James thought he needed. And after getting to know her parents, Frank and Leah, he felt welcomed not only by his partner but also by a new family. What could go wrong? Frank and Leah were rich but grounded people. They ran a successful pharmaceutical firm. And despite their wealth, they were humble and warm. They treated James like the son they never had. And Nicole always jokingly mentioned how he was their adopted son. In James's eyes, Nicole's family was everything he longed for but had never really experienced. His own parents, though loving, lacked that warmth and affectionate family bond. They had stayed together for him but often argued, leaving James feeling emotionally neglected at times. In contrast, being with Nicole and her family gave James the kind of joy and sense of belonging that was entirely new to him. He thought this was his forever. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, until the fateful day Frank and Leah called James over for an important conversation. Little did he know, this conversation would shatter everything he thought he knew about his life. Frank and Leah, visibly uncomfortable but determined, revealed the devastating truth. Nicole had been cheating on him for several months with a younger coworker. A 21-year-old she had hired for their family business. The young man, fresh out of college, appeared to have somehow filled a void in Nicole's life that James was unaware of. The parents had been observing their daughter's increasingly close behavior with this coworker and had confronted her about it multiple times, only to be met with lies and reassurances. Frank and Leah had hired a private investigator to follow Nicole after work. They had been concerned not only for their daughter's marriage but also for the family business, as this coworker was in a subordinate position and could potentially sue for harassment. The investigators' findings were damning. Nicole frequently visited this young man after work, spending hours at his apartment and then coming home to James, acting as if everything were normal. The parents felt torn, unsure whether to interfere, but when it became evident that Nicole was lying to both them and James, they decided that James had the right to know. They called him to their home and shared the heartbreaking news. James was devastated. Betrayal is always painful, but to hear it from Nicole's own parents, the people who had become like his second family, was even more crushing. They were genuinely sorrowful, apologizing profusely and trying to comfort him. But the damage was done. James felt as if his entire world had collapsed in an instant. He stayed at their house that night, unable to face Nicole, unable to go back to the home they shared. The following morning, James returned home to confront Nicole. She was about to leave for work when he walked in, and she immediately sensed something was wrong. He asked her about the affair, hoping against hope that somehow it wasn't true, that perhaps there had been a mistake. Nicole hesitated and denied everything at first, trying to dismiss the accusations. But James had evidence, the photos given to him by her parents, showing her car parked outside her coworker's apartment late at night. Cornered, Nicole broke down and confessed. She admitted that she had been unfaithful. She claimed she had grown bored in their marriage and had no real emotional attachment to the young coworker. She insisted it was a meaningless fling, something she never intended for James to find out about. The words cut through James like a knife. He couldn't believe that she had thrown away everything they had built together just because she was bored. The argument that ensued was explosive, filled with shouting, accusations, tears, and heartbreak. James demanded that she leave the house. But Nicole refused. She begged for another chance, promised that she would end things with the other guy immediately, that they could fix their marriage. But James couldn't stand to be near her, not after everything she had done. Unable to bear staying in the same space as Nicole, James packed a small bag and left. He drove aimlessly for hours, eventually ending up at a motel where he spent the night. Overwhelmed with emotion, James realized that he needed space to process everything, to figure out what he wanted to do next. He didn't want to make any rash decisions, but at the same time, he couldn't imagine staying with Nicole after what she had done. Days turned into weeks, and James found himself struggling. He was staying at the motel, running out of money, and unable to focus on his work. He had taken leave from his job, but soon his employer warned him that if he didn't return, he would be terminated. On top of the emotional turmoil, James now faced financial instability. Divorce was expensive, and he needed to find a new place to live. He turned to his parents for support, but they offered little more than vague advice. Do what feels right. It was his in-laws, Frank and Leah, who checked on him every day, offering both emotional and financial support. They felt guilty for their daughter's actions and wanted to make things right for James. One day, Frank and Leah asked James to come to their house to discuss something important. Nicole was there, and they wanted to sort out living arrangements. Frank and Leah proposed that Nicole move in with them, allowing James to stay in the house so that he could keep his job and have a stable living environment. When James arrived, the atmosphere was tense. He and Nicole avoided eye contact at first, neither of them knowing what to say. Then, Nicole did something that took everyone by surprise. She began accusing James of having an affair. She claimed that she had seen him getting close to a mutual friend. That this supposed infidelity was the reason she had sought solace elsewhere. She presented manipulated photos as evidence, trying to convince her parents that James was the one in the wrong. It was an absurd accusation, but it was clear she was desperate. She wanted to regain her parents' support, to shift the blame onto James so that she wouldn't be the one at fault. But Frank and Leah were having none of it. They were appalled that Nicole would stoop so low as to fabricate lies to justify her actions. They revealed to her that they were the ones who had informed James about her affair. That they had seen everything firsthand and had even hired a detective to confirm their suspicions. Nicole was stunned. She had no idea that her own parents had betrayed her trust. And the realization hit her hard. An explosive argument broke out, with Nicole accusing her parents of siding with James and calling them disloyal. Frank and Leah, in turn, expressed their disappointment in her, lamenting that they had clearly failed as parents if she had turned out this way. In the aftermath of the argument, Nicole stormed out, cutting off contact with both James and her parents. Frank and Leah were heartbroken, but they had made up their minds. They told James that they intended to change their will, making him the sole heir to their $2 million inheritance. They believed that Nicole didn't deserve it after everything she had done and that James, who had been nothing but loving and loyal, was the better choice. James was torn. On one hand, the money could solve a lot of his problems. It could help him move on, find a new place, and get back on his feet. But on the other hand, it felt wrong to take what was meant for Nicole. Despite everything she had done, James still had some lingering feelings for her, and he didn't want to be the reason she lost everything. After much deliberation, and with encouragement from his friends, James decided to accept the inheritance. They reminded him that Nicole had not only cheated on him but had also tried to manipulate her parents into believing he was at fault. She had shown no remorse, and her actions had hurt a lot of people. James realized that he had no reason to feel guilty. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was simply accepting what her parents wanted to give him as compensation for the pain she had caused. James informed Frank and Leah of his decision, and they were overjoyed. They were eager to make things right and felt that this was the least they could do. Nicole, meanwhile, had quit her job at the family business and moved in with her affair partner. She had blocked her parents on all platforms, refusing to speak to them. Frank and Leah were devastated. Despite everything, Nicole was still their daughter, and it pained them to see her throw her life away like this. James tried to console them, and their bond grew even stronger. They were now a family, united by the pain Nicole had caused, but also by the love and support they offered each other. As the divorce proceedings began, James found it difficult to face Nicole. She had moved on quickly, already living with the other man, and it hurt James to see how little their relationship seemed to mean to her. But he knew he had to stay strong, to focus on moving forward. Frank and Leah continued to support him, and they all tried to avoid talking about Nicole, as it was a painful subject for everyone involved. They knew that, in time, the pain would lessen, and they would find a way to heal. James eventually lost his job, but Frank used his connections to help him find a new, better position at a friend's company. It was a fresh start, a chance for James to rebuild his life. The divorce was finalized, and Frank and Leah amended their will, ensuring that Nicole wouldn't find out until it was too late for her to contest it. They continued to meet up regularly, finding solace in each other's company and working through their shared grief together. Throughout this journey, James learned several valuable lessons. One of the most important was the significance of loyalty and trust in a relationship. Nicole's betrayal was not just about infidelity, it was about breaking the fundamental bond of trust that their marriage was built on. Without trust, a relationship cannot survive, and James realized that, despite his love for Nicole, he could never truly forgive her for what she had done. Another key lesson was the importance of standing up for oneself. When Nicole refused to leave the house, James could have given in, could have stayed and tried to work things out, but he knew that he needed space, that he needed time to process everything. By standing his ground and leaving, James took control of the situation and did what was best for his own mental health. The story also highlighted the impact that family can have on a person's well-being. Frank and Leah, despite being Nicole's parents, chose to support James because they saw his genuine love and loyalty. They treated him like their own son and offered him the kind of emotional support that his own parents couldn't provide. This made James realize the true meaning of family. It's not just about blood relations, but about the people who stand by you in your darkest moments. Lastly, James learned that sometimes, the right thing to do is not always the easiest. Accepting the inheritance was a difficult decision. It meant taking away what was meant for Nicole, and despite everything she had done, James didn't want to hurt her, but he also knew that he deserved to move on, to build a better life for himself. Sometimes, doing the right thing means putting yourself first, especially when you've been wronged. James's story is a powerful reminder that betrayal can come from those closest to us. But so can support and love. It is a tale of heartbreak, but also of resilience. James faced unimaginable pain, but he found a way to move forward. With the help of people who truly cared for him, he learned to let go of the past, to accept help when it was offered, and to build a new life from the ashes of his old one. For anyone who has ever faced betrayal, James's story is a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people. Life may throw challenges your way, but with the support of loved ones and the courage to stand up for yourself, you can overcome anything. James didn't just survive, he found a way to thrive, to turn a painful experience into an opportunity for growth and healing. And in the end, that is the true victory.